Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated. Saturday, April 13th is the date. 4 p.m. is the time. It's the 3rd annual Grenada Invitational. World-class athletes, world-class performances, and a world-class facility. Come see Olympians Andre DeGrasse, Sheldon Fraser Price, Braylon Toplin, Asafa Powell, Lyndon Victor, and the cast of superstars at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Tickets are now on sale at godofed.com. Grenadian Optical, Duty Free Caribbean, Maxis Bar, and Venus. Saturday, April 13th. Grenada Invitational. See you there.
McIntyre, top of the screen in the colors of Grenada with a bit of a lead.
Former CXC registrar says additional costs for marking SBS will have to be passed on to students. Details to this story and more in the national report. Welcome back with the details on Monday, April 8th. I am Sherry Ann Noel. Former Registrar and Chief Executive Officer of CXC, Dr. Didicus Jules, says CXC cannot afford to make payments being demanded by some of the region's teachers to correct students' school-based assessments. He was responding to reports of threats by the teachers not to correct the SBAs if payment is not forthcoming. Dr. Jules says if forced to pay, CXC will have to pass on the additional cost to students. More details from regional reporter Stanley Lucien.
No, I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed because the issue of payment for marking exams in general arose when I was registrar of CXC. And one of the first things I had done was to go to council asking for a significant increase in the subventions paid to CXC in order to pay markers much more, because there had been no increase for the preceding 25 years. So we felt that it was necessary to ensure that markers were given, more significant compensation for their marking.
During his tenure at the helm of CXC, Dr. Jules says he and the man who currently occupies his former seat tried desperately to address that concern.
The SBA from its inception was one of the most far-sighted things that the CXC could have done that distinguished it from Cambridge. Because as you know, just let's speak conceptually. First of all, the SBA is an opportunity to for students to apply the knowledge in whatever subject that they are doing to real life and to show the application of knowledge. That's one dimension. The second important dimension is that it is an opportunity for the teacher, the classroom teacher, who has interacted with the students throughout the year, to have a significant input into the grading, whatever is the final grade of their students, and therefore not just rely on a 2 or 3 hour exam, do or die.
The Caribbean Examination Council has held firm to the view that school-based assessment is part of the normal classroom duties for teachers, and they should therefore not be paid any additional amount for assessing the SBAs.
It's very unfortunate because I think in some ways, this is a debate that is focused on the money, and the SBAs it's not a monetary thing. Neither was it meant to be an imposition on teachers that would, unduly tie up their time and create extra effort. All of that was supposed to be fitted within the ambit of the work that they do in their classrooms, and to give value to that in awarding final grades to students.
The Caribbean Examination Council is one of the region's outstanding successes, with passes in CXC subjects accepted for registering for post-secondary courses in the Caribbean, the United Kingdom, India, the United States, and other places. CXC, because of its use of innovation and its credibility, is considered a model in many far-flung regions of the world.
During the government's weekly post-cabinet briefing last week Tuesday, Minister for Education and Human Resource Development, Honorable Emmeline Pear, gave her ministry's position on the subject.
The Ministry of Education's position on this is that SBAs are part of the assessment, normal assessment of students. And we expect that this would form part of the regular assessment duties in accordance with the Education Act of our teachers. Now, it is not unique to Grenada that teachers feel that they should be paid additional because for many, they feel that the last-minute extra work that has to be done. For some, they think that is a lot of work to be done at the end of the period. But we are saying if SBAs are done in the way that is prescribed to be done, we should not have what is happening now. So at this stage, a child should not be starting an SBA, probably if you talk about 2 weeks ago, or a child should not be rushing all over the place to get things done. What we expect would be happening is that over the period, the consistency, the continuous process would eliminate a lot of that end of period work that some persons have.
There is interest for sponsorship for a second edition of the National Secondary School Games, which was held at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium on Friday. The games were organized by the Grenada government through the Ministry of Education in response to the cancellation of the Intercall Games by the Grenada Association of Principals of Secondary Schools. Government said the decision was taken to ensure that students were not deprived of an opportunity to showcase their talent. Mr. Jerry Alexis, Curriculum Officer for Sports in the Ministry of Education, says the games were successful and have the potential to grow.
Definitely we're going to see a continuation. I think anything new in Grenada, you always will see some challenges, you always have questions about it. So the southern zone, as you noted, I wouldn't say it was a failure, however, it wasn't what we expected. There were a lot of positive coming out of it. And the sports grew from that. We went to the western side, western zone, and it was bigger. St. Andrews was bigger, and then Carriacou asked for 2 days, to do the meet. Come next year, hopefully we might have to do 2 days for every zone in order for us to get the field events and stuff in. But definitely we're going to have it next year. As I said on Beyond the Headlines on Monday, I would have spoken to an individual who's very, very interested in the games, collaborating with the government of Grenada, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Sports to be exact, to having these games next year. Even yesterday I spoke to the individual again and he said, listen, Alexis, I was even speaking to an international sponsor yesterday, So, come next year, please a lot, I think we're going to be bigger and better as relates to these games.
During the official opening ceremony, Education Minister Honorable Emmeline Pear reaffirmed her government's commitment to put the interests of the nation's students first.
When the Ministry of Education, through the Minister of Education, was informed by the Principals Association that in 2019 there will be no meet upon, a decision was taken that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ministry of Sports, will hold the National Secondary School Games to ensure that we provide an opportunity for all of our athletes. Following this, a meeting was held with all of the principals, and we outlined the way forward as it relates to the hosting of the zonal games and the national meet today. I also want to use this opportunity at this opportune time to look back at Interpol over the years and the tremendous opportunities that it gave to our students many years ago and in very recent times, and to use the opportunity to commend and express appreciation to all of those who have been involved in one way or the other. And I want at this time recognize even to the very first Interpol meet those who were involved.
A number of athletes achieved personal bests on the tracks and on the field during the games.
Corinne, you first won 155 was the height when you defeated all your other competitors. You went to 161 and then you went to 164 and I think you were trying, was it 168?
Yeah, I was trying my best to do 168, but anytime they clapping and things, this kind of make me feel nervous and things. So I tried my best.
So how hard did you train for today?
I trained really hard. Took me some years, but see today, I did well. I can congrats myself for that.
And how happy are you for this opportunity to come down here, you know, and showcase your skill in high jump?
Opportunity.
You're happy for that opportunity?
Yeah, really happy.
And how do you feel it would turn out for the schools that make up the Eastern Zone in this inaugural championship?
It make them feel proud, real pride and thing, you know. But when the preps, everybody come in for next year, please the Lord, make them feel really good knowing that Corey Mason jumped this already. And they come to break my record and everything, so yeah.
Well, I made my personal best 195, so I see a chance to do the 2 meters, so I had to take it.
So how hard have you trained for today?
Well, it's just been back and forth because for the week I rested, so get the muscles ready for today and stuff. But I've been training hard, doing my extra work home and stuff.
So who is your coach?
Coach Paul.
Paul Phillip?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that Paul said you must execute here today in order to cross that 195 and eventually the 2 meter height?
Well, get the technique better and strengthen the legs, you know, build the muscles.
The 100-meter under-21 boys was the most keenly contested race, with Neil Peters emerging the winner.
Neil Peters from the Western Zone, 10.53. When you ran the Western Games, you said your ultimate goal was to come down to and win the 100-meter. You did that. Tell us about the extra work you put in to ensure that happened.
Well, my coach told me I selected the 150s and what I was doing, so made me do 6 when I had it, and yeah, I guess as much things end up going as well according to plan. And
so finally from me for you, how competitive would you say that particular race was for you? Were you familiar with the other athletes and their ability?
Yeah, I was familiar with them because I know Nathaniel, well, he used to, and I would say used to, he was quicker than me. But after what I saw when I ran, yeah, I could do better, much better too.
One of the top athletes on the track from the Northern Zone was Zane McFarlane.
Well, first of all, I fumbled, so I got to catch up in the end of the race, but hopefully I didn't, but I appreciate with the time.
And how hard did you train for this moment?
Well, training was very hard for me because, you know what, I did as well, so they got to put in the hard work.
On the 15 champions in the boys and girls category, Shanti Augustine and Tajon Peter King of the Southern Zone both spoke of the opportunity to showcase their talent during the games.
Very happy because 12.74 is a personal best for me, and at first I was a bit intimidated, but when the gun went off, I went and I did my best, and I got great results.
So how long have you been training for this? Because I know you did not have secondary school games, but you get the opportunity to show off your talent at the National Secondary School Games. So how long have you been training, and who have you been training with?
Well, I've been training with Speed Zone under Mr. Albert Joseph, and ever since I got into SJC, I've been training for Intercall, but the cancellation caused me, it did not, at first it saddened me, but I continued to train hard, and I heard that they made a little solution to have the National Secondary School Games. Happy.
11.45 seconds. That's a time clock by the winner of the 100-meter boy on the 15. Tajon, tell us about that spirited run. You had a clean start and you powered your way down.
Well, you know, I've been training the whole season so far, and I know I have a lack of start. So in my mind was just to get the start and power go down.
You said that you have been training whole season. Who have you been training with?
Speed Zone with my coach Albert Joseph and Tilani Frank.
So how happy are you for this opportunity today? Because you didn't get a secondary school game. I mean, intercall, you didn't get your school sports, but still training, and you got the opportunity today, and you would have established a record because anyone who wins today would actually.
Yeah, well, I feel happy. You know, I trained very hard for this moment, and I made a personal best. and it's just amazing.
Were you trying to get a little lower than that 11?
Yes.
What was your target?
Well, to hit 11:20 something, but I couldn't make it. No, there's more opportunities again to make it, so I just wait and see.
On the 17 champs went to Kishona Phillip of the Southern Zone and Jaden Tika of the Northern Zone. The under 21 champs went to John A. Thomas and Jared Sylvester of the Eastern Zone.
You're known to excel in the longer distance races. You didn't make it that good in the 15, but you came out and you ran, and it seems as if you ran a pretty easy race here in the 400. How do you feel about this win?
I feel very good about this win. No, coming from injury and running at a time like this, I'm very happy.
Jared, you didn't get to really shine this year because no intercall, no St. David's Catholic Secondary School sports. And this is your final year in secondary school. How happy are you that you got the opportunity here at the National Secondary School Games to go on display one last time for your mates?
I'm very, very, very happy to display my skills to my mates.
The athletes competed in a total of 60 events. Athletes who participated in the first National Secondary School Games have commended the government of Grenada for giving them the opportunity to be back on the track.
As an athlete, how do you feel to have been given this opportunity to compete? Because I know that you didn't have your secondary school game, you did not have the intercall, but you got an opportunity here at the National School Games, and to go along in the record as the athlete who would have, won the Under 21 boys for the inaugural games.
Well, I'm really grateful for the ministries and whoever had part to play in putting all of this together, because this has been a major benefit towards we, the athletes, because with opportunities like this, we get exposure to other types of events, other type of meets coming up, for example, CRFM games, so we can at least prepare knowing that we have something to go for. And as any other athlete, I can't be more grateful for having this. So I'm kind of proud, even though it wasn't one of my best performances, but still got the opportunity to. So thank you.
Students from the Eastern Zone, comprising of St. David Catholic Secondary School, St. Joseph's Convent Grenville, Grenville Secondary School, the St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, and the Grenada Christian Academy emerged champions with 304.50 points. The games were the culmination of 4 zonal meets to select the cream of the crop. The Southern Zone, comprising GBSS, Anglican High School, J.W. Fletcher Catholic Secondary School, Presentation Brothers College, St. Joseph's Convent St. George's, Wesley College and Boca Secondary School placed second with 229.50 points. Third position went to Northern Zone of Bishop's College and Hillsborough Secondary with 146.50 points, and fourth was the Western Zone, comprising schools Hatfield Secondary School, St. Rose Modern Secondary School, St. John's Christian Secondary School, St. Mark's Secondary, McDonald's College, and Grenada 7-Day Comprehensive Secondary School with 118.50 points. The zones participated in both field and track events. This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Big business don't participate.
Welcome back. Committed to serving the academic development of youth in Grenada, the Grenada Houston Association, GHA, has made scholarships available to a number of students to further their education. During a brief ceremony on Friday, Education Minister Honorable Emmeline Pear commended the association for its interest in youth development.
I observed and realized that this organization started as a result of Hurricane Ivan. And a passion, I believe, that was stirred up after the passing of the hurricane that we need to do something special for students. And I want to commend that organization this morning. And so I want to challenge you this morning. However you see this contribution, in terms of quantity, in terms of size, to value it. Somebody worked very hard to ensure that you can have it today.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Kevin Andel, expresses his gratitude to the GHA for its work to ensure young people can secure their future.
I would really like to highlight the organization in which this award is being named, the Grenada Houston Association. Since 2005, that organization of dedicated Grenadians in the diaspora has been engaged in working with Grenada, committed partners to selling Grenada's culture out in the diaspora. But not only to sell Grenada's culture and to highlight what it is, but to also assist in the development of our young people through financial assistance to secondary school level and tertiary level students. As you go forward in your education, and I'm confident that you will make it and reach the highest heights that you should, I'm confident about that. I want you to remember to give back.
And that's the National Report for Monday, April 8th. I am Sherry Noel.
Is the date. 4 p.m. is the time. It's the 3rd annual Grenada Invitational. World-class athletes, world-class performances, and a world-class facility. Come see Olympians Andre DeGrasse, Sheldon Fraser-Price, Braylon Toplin, Asafa Powell, Lyndon Victor, and the cast of superstars at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Tickets are now on sale at godofed.com. Grenadian Optical, Duty Free Caribbean, Maxis Bar, and Venus. Saturday, April 13th. Grenada Invitational. See you there.
McIntyre, top of the screen in the colors of Grenada with a bit of a lead.
It is said that education is the key to success. The Grenada Development Bank believes this to be the truth. Hence the reason we have made it our prerogative to ensure that your key is in safe hands with us. Here is how you can unlock your success with an education loan from the GDB. We offer you 3 loan options. We've got our regular student loan, our work-study student loan, and our special student loan. Our regular student loan is for persons who wish to pursue full-time tertiary level education. If you are a permanent employee who wish to study while continuing your employment, then our work-study loan is for you. Our special student loan is in collaboration with the government of Grenada, geared towards vulnerable persons who would like to pursue higher level education. Remember, you must have proof of admission from a recognized institution here at home or abroad. All our loans are 100% financing with interest rates as low as 5%. Get your funding from GDB today for your tertiary level education, your technical training or vocational training, even professional development, with up to 12 years to repay. Your future success is today. Grab it now.
Saturday, April 13th is the date. 4 p.m. is the time. It's the 3rd annual Grenada Invitational. World-class athletes, world-class performances, and a world-class facility. Come see Olympians Andre DeGrasse, Sheldon Fraser-Price, Braylon Toplin, Asafa Powell, Lyndon Victor, and the cast of superstars at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Tickets are now on sale at godofed.com. Grenadian Optical, Duty Free Caribbean, Maxis Bar, and Venus. Saturday, April 13th. Grenada Invitational. See you there.
McIntyre, top of the screen in the colors of Grenada with a bit of a lead.
I would
you a little background as to the procurement of the ambulances, because after we had our discussions with CBN, we went to Miami to have
Everyone, I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson, and welcome as always to this week's post-cabinet press briefing. To the members of the media in the room, thank you for joining us. To those of you joining us via radio, television, and social media, thanks for tuning in. Today, a packed agenda. We have with us Minister for Youth, Sports, Culture and the Arts, Senator Nolan Cox. We also have Minister for Health and Social Security, Honorable Nicholas Steele. And to my far left, Director of Hospital Services, Dr. Carol McIntosh. We will start this morning with Senator Cox, and he will update us as to things within his ministry. Minister Cox?
Thank you very much, Press Secretary, Minister Steele, and of course my good friend, Dr. McIntosh. And a pleasant morning to our viewing public and also persons listening in on the internet. This morning, we're going to speak on a couple items: the secondary school games, our Carriacou team, also the Grenada Invitational, and of course Spice Mass 2019. I'm going to start first with the National Secondary School Games. As you know, last Friday we hosted, together with the Ministry of Education, the National Secondary School Games, which we consider to be a very successful run of the games. We are very heartened by the support that we receive from our partners, and most importantly, we want to congratulate our young kids, athletes who came out on that day to participate and to ensure that the event ran successfully. And so we are very much grateful for that. In that light, we believe that the games were very critical for us to host, as we have our athletes preparing for Carriacou, which will be taking place in the Cayman Islands later on this month. Also, we have the swim team, national swim team, going to Carriacou meets, which will be taking place in Barbados as well. So we want to wish them all the best and give them all the necessary support to ensure that they go out and represent our country very well. As it relates to the athletics team going to the Cayman, I think they're scheduled to be there from the 19th to the 22nd. We have 11-man team going, of course, with two officials. Our coach, Coach Paul Phillip, is going to be managing the team. On that note, we know that our dear coach, Denise Williams, she was the one who normally takes our Carriacou team out. Unfortunately, she has been having some health challenges. I know that she's back in Grenada, and we wish her well and a speedy recovery, and to ensure that she can come back and continue to support our athletes, our young boys and girls. Our swim team, they'll be traveling to Barbados, and they always represent us well. We want to wish them all the best as well. I'm hoping to meet with them sometime on a Wednesday before they depart for the Carriacou game. This weekend, we have our third hosting of the Grenada Invitational. We expect it to be an exciting event based on the lineup of athletes. It's an excellent cast that is before us. From our reports, everything seemed to be on stream, and we, from the government and the Ministry of Sports, is providing all the necessary technical support, and of course, which I had mentioned earlier, and some financial support to the Grenada Invitational to ensure that this event comes off successfully. This is an important event for us. As you know, it has been featured on ESPN, and last year the games were viewed by 112 million households. We think that is very impactful for Grenada and, of course, for sports in general. We are anticipating that our youths, young athletes from the schools are going to come out to interact with some of the international athletes who are there, and we hope that this event will continue to inspire our athletes to continue to perform and perform outstandingly. Our Grenadian athlete Olympic champion, and that we have to say our Olympic champion, Kirani James, and gold and silver medalist. He's here in Grenada. He came on Monday. He's going to be the ambassador for the games, and so we expect him to be doing some commentary as well, meeting and greeting the athletes as they come in. And so we wish him all the best. He's not actually participating this year, but he's here as the ambassador to the games. This is very important news for us, and we are always welcome to have our star athlete home here with us in whatever capacity. If he's just relaxing or here for any game, we always welcome Kirani home here with us. On to Spice Mass. As we know, Spice Mass we believe is going to be one of the biggest carnivals ever in the history of Grenada, and probably surpass some of the other major carnivals in the region. We're looking forward to a wonderful celebration of Spice Mass 2019, and we're going to kick that off on basically on the 2nd of May, Thursday the 2nd of May, with what we call a pre-launch, a media launch. At that event, we're going to be launching the theme for 2019 Carnival. And so I would not say the theme now, but we hope to leave that so that theme will be unveiled on that day. And we probably have some remarks by myself and other persons who are pertinent towards the development of this important cultural asset. Later in a couple of days on Saturday, later that week, we're going to have the launch at the National Stadium at the Junior Murray Royal Louis stand. It's going to commence at 3 p.m. with a parade. We're asking some of the bands from last year to come out with the old costumes to parade, and we're going to bring everybody, all the masqueraders, Calypsonians. We're just going to have a wonderful day. We're hoping that we can run that event tight and to ensure that we close up just around midnight or 1 o'clock, no later than that. And so those are the main activities that we have coming from the Ministry of Youth Development, Sports, Culture, and the Arts this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Cox. We'll go right next to Minister Nicholas Steele, who has responsibility for health and social security. Minister Steele, what's been happening in your ministry?
Thank you very much. All of our listeners out there and our viewers and those of you present here. It's been a while since I've been with you, but always a pleasure. Let me start by saying from healthcare, as always, there are complaints, comments about what we do, what we are not doing, what we should do better. And I've always said I welcome them. There are some occasions, though, where we, I think, should all recognize that some of the individuals commenting are opportunists. Maybe political opportunists, or just looking for recognition or so. But in particular, most recently, there seems to be comments coming from some politicians who obviously don't understand government or governing a country. And I think it's appropriate that I'm speaking right after Minister Cox, our Minister of Sports, because there were comments made, the stadium lights and the budget that we're spending on the stadium lights and which should be in healthcare. So maybe there shouldn't be a Minister of Sports at all and just only have a Minister of Health. But I think what individuals fail to recognize who are making these comments is that this is spending in addition to the spending that's being done in healthcare. That as a responsible government, we must be rounded and make sure that to be healthy, there must be healthy facilities, sporting facilities as well, and we must encourage sporting activities as well. And that healthcare and our problems in healthcare is not just about money. Throwing money behind it is not going to be the magic wand that solves it. And I'll speak to you today on some of the achievements we've had recently, and I have Dr. McIntosh here with me as well. And we will address some of these achievements, our purchases and new facilities, but most importantly, the successes and the progress that we make in healthcare is going to be with systems being put in place and staffing and training and our people that are there, or quality of people that are there. So most recently we made announcements about ambulances. We still have our full complement of ambulances, but we're not stopping there. We're now going to have discussions about a central dispatch system for ambulances that makes it more efficient. We're going to make sure now that while we have the right amount of ambulances, that we also have discussions about improving the equipment that are on those ambulances. We are going to need to ensure that those ambulances have automatic electronic defibrillators on them. And we are, as always, we need to strengthen the staffing, the training that are from our ambulance drivers, orderlies, nurses, or doctors, whoever goes out on the ambulances. Phase 2, the move into Phase 2 is imminent, and that's going to be a phased move-in. But that's not the end of it. Having built that building and spent money on that building, that's not the end of it. That if we now have to discuss additional staffing and increased and improvement of services that are being offered in Phase 2. Pediatrics is one of our strongest departments nationwide, but in the general hospital in particular. And I compliment the team that's there, that department that's there. But we don't stop there just by it being our strongest department. We received equipment on Friday from the Russian Federation, and we are still going to go further to strengthen our neonatal department. We are now able to deal with premature babies who are 28 weeks, and there is a survival chance for them, which didn't exist before. But again, we're not going to stop there. We are going to further our discussions and our improvements and recognize that there's still more to do. In surgery, we have strengthened our surgical department by now having an additional neurosurgeon here in the form of Dr. Nilo from Cuba. And we have a world-class, world-renowned pediatric surgeon that's here. Come to Grenada as well, to live in Grenada. But we're not going to stop there. There's still more. And that's not about the money. Nursing. All our nurses are employed who are trained, but we still need more. We recognize that because we as a people are such a friendly people, and our nurses have had a reputation of being good since the 70s, and that there is a worldwide shortage of nurses, that some of our nurses are moving on to what, in their opinion, is greener pastures. And we welcome that. So it means that while we have started our SGU training of nurses, we now have to deal with training additional nurses, because some of our nurses, in their own right, are leaving to go elsewhere, because we have our own challenges as a developing nation with salaries throughout. But it's not just about the money. We have to go further with the level of services and the quality of conditions that our nurses operate in at the general hospital as well, and in all of our healthcare, primary healthcare facilities. Our hospital administration. We brought in Dr. McIntosh, who's right here. But we're not going to stop there. And she will speak to what her presence and the difference that her presence means, and not just having her here, that's the end of it. That's actually the beginning of it. So I leave her to speak to the hospital administration. But health centers. We have all our electronic medical records installed in our health centers now. The system is in place in our health centers. But we're not going to stop there, because it has to be installed in our general hospitals as well, and there has to be additional training and pushing forward. We have ambulances now, because we have full coverage in certain medical districts that didn't have before. But we're not going to stop there, because we have to discuss that those ambulances must be properly staffed, properly equipped, and must run on a 24-hour basis through those very health centers or districts. We are in final discussions with a rollout on refurbishment for all of our health centers through World Bank funding. But we're not going to stop there, because after we give you brand new health centers, we have to make sure that they're properly staffed and that the staff there are happy, the doctors and the nurses, and that whoever is there is meeting your expectations. And we expect that your expectations today are going to be different from your expectations tomorrow. So we look forward to constantly striving to meet them. GOV, construction on the GOV, or as I prefer to refer to it as the St. John St. Mark's Polyclinic, has started. And going ahead at a rate, those of you who are passing on the West Coast will see, at quite a rate. But we also now have to have firm discussions on, yes, we're going to build that in time, it's going to have the equipment that it was meant to, but now we must have discussions on improving the services and increasing the services for individuals in St. John's and St. Mark's. So not just giving them a brand new polyclinic with equipment and people, but what more can we do? Because we would have met that expectation, but there is tomorrow's expectations. We've had 2 visits, thankfully, from our friends from the People's Republic of China, but we need more visits. We've had visits from a Brazilian ship as well. But we need to recognize that based on the public support for these visits is still also a comment on the need for more national services. So while we go out to get additional visits, we have to recognize that until we see the number of people going and visiting the ships tapering down, we still have a lot to do in healthcare. So we're not going to stop there either. National health insurance will be implemented in 2020. But when it is implemented, it doesn't stop. There will still be encouragement in the form, quite likely, of criticism or so, but meaningful criticism, that we must increase the basket of services. Whatever we start with, we must continue to offer more. But we will have national health insurance in 2020. Mount Gay Hospital. I look forward to us finishing the phase 2 so that we can begin construction on Rathdoon. And I am making a commitment, because I have the support of my cabinet colleagues as well, that the government will today commit to also rebuilding the Carlton home. We have to find the resources to do it much faster than we have been doing it right now. And we will. We will find those resources to do it. New hospital. We do need a brand new hospital. I would love to have a brand new hospital. And if I were short-sighted, small-minded, and not the right person to be at the level of governance, I would say do not put any money in lights. Put all the money in giving me a brand new hospital. But as an educated person, and thankfully informed person, I do recognize that there are other OECS islands that have built brand new hospitals that are yet to occupy those brand new hospitals properly. And still that brand new hospital, while not occupied, has not resulted in an improvement in the level of healthcare to the people, which is what is most important. It's not the buildings that we build, or not just the buildings that we build, but the level of healthcare that we deliver to our people. And that's based on the people that we have doing it and the systems that we have as well. The best hospital with the wrong systems, unhappy people or unqualified people will fall apart. Social media, I recognize and appreciate all of the comments. Most, if not all, are negative. But that's how we self-improve, by getting our negative comments. And today, Dr. McIntosh and I are going to commit within the next week to be setting up a chat room that allows you to direct your complaints about health, complaints in particular, but if anybody wants to come and give compliments, we welcome that too. That will have the 24/7 attention of the administration within health. Myself, the permanent secretary, Dr. McIntosh, the medical director, the chief medical officer. Those are the types of people that will be responding to whatever complaints come on there. So whether it's a Facebook page as well, that you can direct comments to, and everybody can follow and see, this is where you can complain, and let's see what kind of response you get, whether it is an apology and that we will do better, or whether it is an explanation of how we are doing better and how that incident might be the exception rather than the rule. But there will be incidents, so we do need to set up a mechanism to find out. And I can say proudly that while we still have many incidents that do not meet the expectation of the public, those incidents are becoming more and more an exception rather than the rule. But there will be incidents, and therefore we will set up that so that you can direct whether it is frustration, whether it is meaningful criticism, or just comments, or agreement to those who are venting their frustration, or support to those who are venting their frustration or annoyance, or heartfelt disappointment in the system. That there is an area that can be done and directed to, that can get the attention and response full time. Because I do not expect my PS, CMO, myself always to be looking at social media, Facebook, and everybody else's page. So what we're saying is that we will give you a page and a talk room that you can direct so that we will be looking there so that we can hear what you're saying. And you can do this while this exception is happening. If you are forced to wait too long in casualty, if you find that the way you are being dealt with in a health center, if you are waiting on surgery, whatever it is your complaint is, even while it is happening, the beauty of social media is that you can post it while it's happening. If we are awake, if it's at nighttime, or if it is in working hours or so, you quite likely can get a response right there and then. So that is our hope, that is our intention, that you can use that. So having said all of this, I take this opportunity to pass on to Dr. McIntosh for her to also give you some comments.
All right, good morning, everyone. Again, Ms. Philomena Robertson, Minister of Youth, my good friend, Mr. Cox, and Minister Steele. We sit here and we talk about what it is that we want to do and where we want to go to. But we also have to address what is going on now. My coming in October 1st was not coming in to say, okay, I'm now the Director of Hospital Services, but coming in to say, how do we as a people together, how does the Ministry of Health work towards providing better care to the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique? And one of the things that was great was the fact that I didn't come in and the next person left, but Ms. Fleury stayed to help with the transition. And then also talking about teamwork and how do we work together towards building towards a common goal. And our common goal is patient-centered care. I think every time when I sit down in policy, we're talking about patient-centered care. What is the most important is patients. How do we improve the care across the board? And to improve the care is not only just hearing about the complaints, etc., but also talking about what is positive and what we're looking towards. Because before I go into this, I just want to address with the Facebook. Yes, we can talk about all the complaints. My concern is the person that reads that and says, oh my gosh, look at what's going on at the hospital. I'm not going to go in there because it is so bad. May they themselves then turn out to become further sick and perhaps die because they didn't seek out care because they thought it was not going to happen. We do have to recognize that things are not perfect, but this is what we have. And that for us to be able to improve upon our care is to work within the system, bring everyone in, and try to work on improving it. And recognize, no, we're not Memorial Sloan Kettering, we're not Johns Hopkins, we're not the U.S. We're Grenada with a population of 100,000 from WHO that says we're middle to low resource country. And we're working with the best that we can. Some of the base things is to look at what are the different complaints and how do we address that. One of the major ones, I believe, is with the emergency room and people coming in and having to wait or not even getting to that point, calling for an ambulance and perhaps getting a response that you would not expect when you're saying, I'm ill and need an ambulance. That is a problem because it is patient-centered care. And how do we start to address it? The major issue is the fact that it's staffing. How do we have enough people to address it? And then being able to direct where things need to go. So when you say you're calling in for an ambulance, it is not calling the A&E, because that's the emergency room, to address emergencies that come in for care. You were calling for an ambulance to come out to get the person to come to the emergency room. So what we're working with is to pull that out from there, because the emergency room is not about ambulances, it's about taking care of patients. To get that person in there is to now have people that are directed in there to be able to say, how do we start to improve the emergency services here in Grenada? And being able to dispatch out the ambulances for that. That's one. So that helps to take away from the burden in the emergency room. Within the emergency room, what happens is that we have to remember, even though we have General Hospital, Princess Alice Hospital, Princess Royal Hospital, Mount Gay Psychiatric Hospital, Richmond Nursing Home, General Hospital is the only hospital for all of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique that does the surgeries, that does all the different things. And even with our private hospital, if there's a problem there, they come back to the General Hospital. The General Hospital only has 198 bed capacity for 100,000 people. So when you're looking at that, it will become overcrowded. It will become overburdened. And when we're saying that we're already understaffed and then losing, it's even more so. That is not an excuse to us not providing the best of care, but it is something for us to be aware of, because we have to deal with reality when we're going to talk about care. So one of the things that we started to look at, and my working with Dr. Dragon, our medical director, is that when people are coming into the emergency room, not those who are emergencies now, if there is that we are overcrowded, then we start talking about diversion. Can we take some of our more stable patients in the General Hospital and pass them on to go into Princess Alice Hospital? So they're still getting the care because it's still the physicians. And what I believe is that we move the patient because the doctors and nurses can follow. And then that allows for the most emergent patient to be able to come in without the overburden of having so many beds, so many different issues that are going on, and getting more direct care. That's within the emergency care. Then there are the complaints of when people who are on the floor and saying, and that the Minister Steele knows I'm very blunt, very straight, that, you know, the nurse didn't come by, or I didn't see the doctor, or I didn't see this person. Sometimes that's simply because of the fact that you did see the person and you don't know who that person is. Because the person will walk up, say something to you, and walk away. And you're like, well, who is that? Who's that person? Which is one of the base things that we introduce, just the IDs. So you at least be able to identify who that person is that spoke to me. Perhaps that was the doctor or the nurse, but because they were moving so fast, they didn't have a chance to say, I am the doctor, and I'm talking to you and moving off. And if you know that was the doctor or the nurse, then you can pull their jacket. I have another question to ask and hold them there. But if you don't feel that that's the case, that's why we're the administrators that are here. If there is a problem that's on the floor, bring it. Bring it to us so that we can start to address it, so that we can be able to say, okay, let's at least hear it out, be able to address that situation, not to address it to say to be punitive to a doctor or a nurse or this or that, but to say to look at the system and how can we improve it. And that's where we are working with all the different departments, et cetera. So in addressing some of the different issues is accountability. It is actually being able to be identified, to identify the problem, be able to address it, and say, how do we work towards the process of improving? In addressing moving forward, which I agree, Minister Steele, his point is to talk about what it is that we can do and moving forward. That's where you have to have hope. You have to be saying, where are we going to? I'm going to talk about, well, what's going on now so we can get there and address those particular issues. So when we talk about phase 2 and moving towards it, I hear the complaints. You're getting a new building. It's really big. We don't have staff. Who's going in there and why are we doing that? True. We're getting a new building. It is very big. We don't have staff yet, but we do need to change the services. So if you know outpatient department and saw how it was sitting, where you're sitting outside, waiting, crowded, people walking by, you cannot see the doctor. The room you're going to is small, tight, cramped, and hot. Even if it is that you're just moving into a new building that has more rooms, that you can sit inside and wait, and we're still with the same number of doctors, it helps a little bit. I might have to sit here for an hour for the doctor, but at least I'm sitting inside in an air-conditioned place. And when I sit with the doctor who's not feeling that he's overwhelmed or she's overwhelmed, they will listen to me a little bit longer. So it is something where we're moving into that and hoping to expand. And of course, it's always underlying money is necessary. So it's great to hear that Cabinet is listening and wants to give more money, and we will take more money. saying that, Mr. Steele. We will take it. But if we don't have the money, let's work at how we can improve upon it. We all know that as we were growing up, our mother would tell us, that's the same skirt, you're going to wash it, you're going to wear it, you're going to finish it, and you're going to wear it again. Yes, until perhaps I can get to the point to get a second one, but I got to work with what I have. So I emphasize that there are a lot that's going on. I will hold with questions before I just go into a lot with the pediatric ward and how we're moving with that, the services that we're offering, but also emphasize that we have administrators at each of the hospitals. Reach out to us and let us know. It's like, yes, we're going to look at the Facebook, but reach out to us, come in, because we can be the listening ear. We don't necessarily have to say, no, I have a next patient to talk to. We can be the listening ear and help you to bring that back to whatever the complaint is, as well as if we hear a positive response, that's good. It helps sometimes when you're in the trenches and the doctors and nurses are working. They are working hard, considering the fact that they are underpaid. Yes. Considering the fact that they have to work long hours and they can't leave until the next person comes in, and they may not stop to eat, and they keep moving around, and you got 2 nurses that are hitting a floor of about 30 patients. It is nice to hear, you know, I know you're working hard, but I got good care. It may not be the best care, but I got good care. The fact that we hear that there's a neurosurgeon here tells us that we can offer services here that we were not able to offer before. In an operating room that still is, where people say, well, it's third world. Yes, but it provides. And the fact that we're able to say that we can help with 28-weekers, that's remarkable. And that's something, if you ask the parents of the 28-weekers who see their child 1 year later running around and playing, they would say, yeah, there's problems. Yes, the nurse was short. The doctor was short. You know, the place could have been a bit cleaner. But my child is here, and perhaps my child will be the person that will come in and make an impact to change it. So I'm not sure if there's any further I need to say. I'll sit back for questions.
Thank you, Dr. McIntosh, and thank you for the opportunity. So we're here for questions or comments from you. Thank you.
So as Minister has indicated, the floor is now open for questions. As per usual, please identify yourself and your media house before you ask your question.
Good morning, Karima Lewis, the New Today newspaper. I'm going to start with Minister Steele. It's funny that you mentioned a lot of the things that I wanted to ask you about, ambulances, nurses, and so on. So I'm gonna start with this. A couple of weeks ago, I think there was an English woman who died at the hospital. She was aboard the Osprey and later died at the hospital. Now, the story goes that she was at the Osprey and she fell sick, but the Osprey was not equipped with life-saving equipment. And she later was transferred to the Coast Guard, and a call was made for the ambulance to meet them at the port. When they got there, the ambulance was late, and when it eventually arrived, it was not equipped with stuff to try to save that woman's life. They got to the hospital. No one was informed of her condition, and no doctor was on call. That's the story I got. So what would be your response to that, especially given some of the things that you mentioned there?
Well, the incident that you're talking about did happen. You have a couple parts of it incorrect. The Osprey, yes, the lady had, as we were able to determine afterwards, a heart attack, as we would say, on the Osprey. Based on, I asked for a full report because, again, there was social media comments on it right there and then that Sunday. So I asked for a full report. Dr. McIntosh gave me a full report on it. But I'm correcting you in the fact that, 1, the person got a heart attack while on the Osprey. 2, there was a doctor on call. And 3, the call for the ambulance, as Dr. McIntosh will explain the actual details on it, and you'll see what happened there. And this is why I said, while we have ambulances, we do need the central dispatch now to coordinate the communication. So Dr. McIntosh can explain the details on that because she gave me a thorough report.
Right. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it in a way to be able to identify because it's patient confidentiality. But in being just in general, there was a person that was on the Osprey that suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. Fortunately for her, there were 2 doctors and a paramedic that was also on the Osprey and who started CPR immediately. They continued with the CPR immediately. Unfortunately, the Osprey, which is a private-owned vessel, so we cannot talk about what it is they do have or don't have, but we can talk about, and I'm going to put these little snippets in between, how as the ministry that we can offer recommendations to privately owned to assist us, especially if they're carrying people that are in need of care. And so she was a passenger on the Osprey. In addition to her being on the Osprey, there was also a patient being transferred from Carriacou to Grenada. So that meant that there was an ambulance that was waiting for the Osprey to come in because they were expecting that. In the mix of all the CPR that was done and addressing the patient, one person stopped, and I can say that it was the minister of Carriacou, P.T. Martinique, who stopped and said, what else can we do? Because this is the slow Osprey. We're only an hour in. We have another hour and a half to go, and they're trying to resuscitate this woman. She then called the Coast Guard, but she's not a physician. So when she calls, she says, we need someone. We have someone that's sick on board. And I'm not saying this myself because I asked the Coast Guard that we need the Coast Guard to come. Coast Guard took about 40 minutes or so to come, but when they came, that's when they saw the situation that this person was ill with a cardiac arrest and need additional. Coast Guard is not an emergency vessel. They don't carry what we call the AED, the automated external defibrillator, automatically, but they should. Came on board, and the doctors realized that they don't have much of the facilities. The doctors then came from the Osprey with the woman to continue CPR with the Coast Guard. So there was always a doctor with this person starting from the Osprey moving on. Then from there, the Coast Guard got back into Grenada and was sitting right up at the port, and the Osprey was supposed to be coming in as well. Now remember, there was a person that was waiting as a patient to be transferred to Grenada. So there was an ambulance that was coming down to meet the Osprey, but the Coast Guard waved them down. No one from the minister or on the boat or the Coast Guard did call in to the General Hospital to say we have this. That was inadvertent, and it happened because of the melee that was going on. So the ambulance stopped and came and went directly there. This, again, is directly from our Director of Emergency Services, Dr. Phillip. So that, yes, the ambulance did come. It wasn't that the ambulance didn't necessarily have all, because there was a lot that was necessary with suction, etc. They didn't have a defibrillator on the ambulance, which is true, but they had CPR. So the defibrillator is the external automated. A manual defibrillator is the person. Okay, the defibrillator is there to help if there's no pulse to bring a heart rate back. But if you don't have that, chest compressions keeps the blood flowing. So they continue with that, and the doctor on the Coast Guard asked the ambulance, because they're saying, we need suction, we need this. The ambulance is thinking it's the transfer who was a head laceration and saying, no, we don't have that. Not knowing very well that, yes, you do. This is a different patient that you now have. So what did the doctor do? The doctor rightfully came on the ambulance with the patient, continuing CPR. So now you remember there's a time factor where we're still doing chest compressions, oxygen to this person, and getting them to the emergency room. There is a doctor always in the emergency room. It's not a doctor on call. There's a doctor stationed in the emergency room. They are always there. They don't leave. The nurses would go out on emergencies, so there's always a doctor there. When they arrived, the doctor put on the EKG, got some heart activity, so that meant that there was no need for a defibrillator, because remember, a defibrillator is with no pulse. And so they continued to see how they can resuscitate the woman. But the second EKG showed no activity, and the doctor now pronounced, and it can only be a physician, pronounced the person dead. Now, in all of these different things, we don't know. We don't know if there was an AED that was right there on the Osprey that this could have helped. We don't know. So it is true, we can't say what is going on, and it is true, a person died. No question about that. And she died from a sudden cardiac arrest, which is probably the #1 killer. Very quick. Someone drops down, sudden cardiac arrest. Can we have stopped it? We don't know. Can we improve? Most definitely. No question about that. How do we improve? Is by the fact that we take this and start to address it, just as the minister who came back to me and said, look at what happened. And how do we hear about it? Through social media. We need to actually be able to say, how can we address this with our own protocols? That we have quality indicators within our hospitals, where we say if someone comes in and dies within 24 hours, let's look at that and address what happened. And maybe this person was going to die. We address it and we say, that's fine. Not fine, thank God, forgive me. That is something that happened. But we address it and say something happened. Not this doctor did wrong, that nurse did this, the ambulance didn't have this. Something happened. How do we change the system to improve it, to address that? And that's where we are. So her death was a sadness to her family. It is unfortunate, and there's a lot that could have been improved. But with her death, that caused us to be able to say, no, we need to step back and look at small commercial vessels, how they're being addressed. How do we make sure that communication is reached? And this is a prime example of, you don't call the emergency room for an ambulance, you call the dispatch, so that that dispatch can get all that information, because the emergency room is like, look, I got a patient here, I got a patient there. What is it that you want? You want an ambulance? And not able to address that. And the dispatch is someone where there is a doctor whose focus is the call, what's going on, you need this, we'll get this in place. And we start to address that. So we extend our sympathies. We extend our sympathies to the family, and recognize that this is something, this is a person, this is a mother, this is a sister, this is someone that died. How can we improve upon that? How can we look at the system and improve across the board?
Thank you, Dr. McIntosh. And as you see, we've done a thorough investigation on it. And I want to add a part that Dr. McIntosh didn't. Dr. McIntosh herself is from Carriacou. So she most definitely understands, as someone from Carriacou, the need to have that. So what have we done as a result of this, as a result of those social media comments that I received and then passed on to them? I am pushing for, there is a legislation that's called the Small Commercial Vessels Code. That is a legislation that will have licensing for vessels like Osprey, like Rum Runner, and others, our party vessels, as well as our commercial, whether they're carrying passengers or cargo, to increase the level of first aid kits and care, etc., which would include an automatic external defibrillator to be on board those vessels. Because such an incident could have happened as well on some of the party boats like Rum Runner or any of the others, and they want to. Those that I've spoken to are very much willing to comply with that. It will also say that the vessel must always have persons trained in first aid to be able to do CPR, must always have. But then for us as well, the ambulances were there. But because of the absence of a central dispatch that should be speaking with police and Coast Guard as well, we had an ambulance going for the Osprey. And when we got a call saying that there's an Osprey patient that needs an ambulance, we said, yes, we have an ambulance ready for the Osprey, but the Osprey isn't in as yet. Because the Osprey had transferred a patient to the Coast Guard. We didn't get a call from the Coast Guard saying that, and that was in a miscommunication. So a central dispatch is absolutely necessary. But apart from that, to be able to equip personnel-wise, staffing-wise, training-wise, and equipment-wise, the ambulances to be able to deal with each and every emergency that they're faced with. And in this instance, the one thing that was absent was the automatic external defibrillator. And as Dr. McIntosh said, would that have made a difference? We are not sure. We don't know. But it would have given us, and most definitely the family, a level of comfort to know that it was there, whether they needed it or not, that it was there. And that central dispatch you see in this instant, that central dispatch, and also, whether it's a 2-hour journey from Carriacou, half an hour journey from Carriacou, or 1 hour journey from Carriacou, things can happen to people that are on board. And let us make sure that the private providers get the support from us for the training of their crew members, and also the legislation, and so that it insists that they have certain equipment on board. Same way that you must have life jackets, you must now have at least one automatic external defibrillator. So that's one of the examples where we look forward to self-improving or improving our system, but it's from those comments. So while a lot of people out there are just looking at the negative comments, I think the mistake that we have been making is not responding to them, because sometimes someone speaks about an incident and then many other people just vent from it. And sometimes it's politically motivated, and sometimes it's just not. It's honest people just venting and saying how appalling. But maybe we should respond back afterwards like we have been able to do today and say, hey, we heard you and this is what we've done. But it's inappropriate for us to respond to individuals' private Facebook posts. That's why we're saying we're going to set up for ourselves that page that individuals can direct, and then we can address that Dr. McIntosh could have given, instead of waiting for you to raise that question. And we're glad you raised the question, and you can see we were prepared for it, that we could address it in social media as well, so that you can ask another question, I hope.
Minister Steve, before we go to another question from Karima, I think, and Dr. McIntosh as well, I think it's important to also recognize the human capacity in that particular situation. Yes, we recognize that there were shortcomings, but the mere fact that the individual, may she rest in peace now, but that she was kept alive for that journey to be able to get to the hospital, get a first reading on the EKG, that also shows that there is a capacity in the individuals that we have in our healthcare system.
Before we go, you hit right on the point, and that is so key. We have people here that are capable, because the doctor that was there is the doctor at the general hospital. And when you hear, it's like saying, yeah, she slumped over on me. I stopped and checked the pulse and immediately jumped in, and other people jumped in as well. There was a paramedic and another physician that assisted. And it'd be great because people are saying, we have the doctor, we got the capabilities, we got surgeons that are sitting there, we got nurses themselves who are able to do some of the same roles as physicians. We are strong, but we need help. We are strong, but we need addition. But the fact is, like you said, is that there were people that were able to assist and that came forward and assisted. Because he could have sat there and said, well, I'm a passenger, and not do anything. But he came forward. So that is true. That is true. We are working towards better things.
That's a couple. The dispatch service, how soon can we see it coming on stream?
Told that from us giving them the go, and we're just waiting on their final costing. We got a preliminary costing from them late last week. There is going to be a trip because we're looking at police as well as ambulance. I believe the police are already much further along with discussions, and I think they're going to see a demo, and then there will be a demo here in a matter of a week or 2 weeks. And we're told a 4 to 6 week period for install. But we do need, at that same time, the training of the people. We've identified certain people, and we have to have those people in the central dispatch. So give us 2 months.
Can I preface that? Give us 2 months from the time that it has been agreed upon. I know we're sitting here and talking, everyone's like, oh, tomorrow? Where is it? It's not. We have to be clear. It takes money, it takes training, and it takes instituting it. So when we say 2 months, that's 8 weeks, business weeks, not including the weekends. So, really be clear, because then you also have to train the people to be able to come in. You have to bring in the computers, so you have to make sure that everything is in place. So there's a lot in the training that goes on with that.
Okay, Minister Steele, I have a few more questions for you, but I want to ask Minister Cox probably 2 questions and give the others a chance to ask. Invitational, it's this weekend. I'm not so sure if it's in your capacity to tell me, but what assurity can you give that athletes will be paid on time for this year's game?
Okay, that's a very important question, and it's a question that is very important for us, not only for the ministry, but also important for the Grenada Athletic Association and, of course, Grenada athletes, international athletes as a whole. The Grenada Invitational Committee, they would have made some recommendations to us, which was for the cabinet approved. Those recommendations were approved to put some measures in place to ensure that athletes' payments are assured. Together with the support of the Grenada Athletic Association, meaning that the estimate of monies that will be allocated for lane fees are basically held and waiting there. As soon as the games are completed, it will be dispensed. So as we speak, those funds are basically held and waiting to be paid to athletes. And they are the ones who recommended that to ensure that they are more prudent in terms of treating the athlete business going forward. So that has been looked after.
Can you disclose the budget for Spice Mass, government's contribution, private sector contribution?
Private sector contribution is an ongoing process. We have taken a more strategic approach in dealing with the private sector, and we are having some good feedbacks. We are hoping to have a number of persons confirm their support on or before the launch, so that information will come out at the launch. Government support is always flexible. Minimum, I think last year was about $1-something million government had allocated. I do not want to say much because I might need my support of my colleague to ask for an increase. The expectations is much more for Spice Mass this year, as most Grenadians can agree, and basically it will require that maybe government may have to invest more in this year's activities to ensure that we put in a good showing of what we have here in Grenada as what we call Spice Mass. The product is most important to us, and so basically we believe that we're going to get more support in terms of sponsorship. We're seeing that because of the approach that we are taking. We are taking a more personal approach, ensuring that we secure sponsors, their sponsorship, having somebody we engage. What we have a sponsorship liaison officer, somebody dealing with the sponsors separately, so our CEO can focus on other important things like the planning and executing of other critical things. We have somebody dealing with sponsorship solely, so that person is meeting with the sponsors, holding their hands, ensuring that everything that they request is achieved from our end. So that is the approach that we have taken this year.
Sherry and Noel, GIS. My first question is for Senator Cox. Senator Cox, as it pertains to the National Secondary School Games, it concluded Friday. It was a success. One of the questions, though, is the fact that should the Principals Association agree to return to intercall in 2020, what's the position as it pertains to bringing out another National Secondary School Games, because we now have a zone that would like to defend the championship?
Thank you very much. I was hoping that you probably didn't ask me that question, because it's a difficult question for us in terms of government. In terms of, we have a number of feedback from persons who indicated that they like this format, the zonal format, and also there are persons who love intercall, who die for intercall in its construct. In terms of how we go forward, that we do not know as yet. As you know, there are a number of issues before us with our teaching fraternity, and that is critical towards basically how we would move forward in the future. If we'll have those matters resolved, we do not know. It's an area of uncertainty for us. What is most certain is that the government has agreed and continue to ensure that it will do everything necessary to ensure that our students are engaged from an athletic and sporting standpoint. That we can be assured on.
I think Senator Cox and I have discussed it too, and one of the things that we had agreed on is, look, that question is for the Principals Association as to whether they are going to have intercall next year. We have shown that we focus on our athletes, our young athletes, and they must have an opportunity, regardless of whether the discussion is going on in with we adults, government and us unions and so. Our youth must continue to have their opportunities. So if the Principals Association at that point were all good and in good discussions, which I certainly hope so, we might be discussing, as you have just asked and implied, 2 events for our youth instead of just 1. So hopefully out of this will be all positive.
And part 2 has to do with, you mentioned about the character and the swimming. We know in recent years our swimmers have been doing exceptionally well, but we've always heard the complaints that they don't get much support from the Ministry of Sport. It was heartening to hear you say that you would speak to them in I think on Wednesday. What sort of support is your ministry given to the swimming character team this year?
If I had known that you would ask me that question, I probably would have worked with the spreadsheet. What I can tell you, from since last year, when I became the Minister responsible for sports, we have been providing significant support to swimming in Grenada. And we have provided financial and other support towards the pool. They had done a renovation just recently. We had provided some support to them. And we historically has provided support in terms of their trips, whether it's by airfare or support to accommodation. So that has been consistent, and that has continued. I personally has also provided support. I normally go, when they have to travel, I go give them some pep talk and things like that to encourage our young boys and girls to perform at the best. And so I really enjoy doing that, and I look forward probably to doing that on Wednesday, hoping that I can clear my schedule as much as possible. They have also extended an invitation to my office to attend the games with them. Also, the Athletic Association has extended an invitation for me to attend the character games with them. That is a decision for Cabinet. We'll see how that goes. And we might be disappointed. I cannot go to both, but probably we'll see what happens. Nonetheless, they know that they have our full support, whether or not I am there or some other official. They know that they have the full support from the government at all times.
Okay, my question now is for Minister Steele. Minister Steele, in your remarks, you mentioned about the construction of the Radoon and the Carlton home. I know that there is a sort of private partnership where the Co-op Bank is raising some funds. Is it that you're going to fast track that?
Yes, basically we a partnership agreement with Grenada Cooperative Bank where they were raising funds and we would match those funds. And that has been dictating the schedule for the construction of Rathdoon. That schedule, in my opinion now, while we are most grateful for the assistance that we've been getting from Grenada Cooperative Bank in them recognizing this area, this shortfall of ours, and they stepping forward to help us, that schedule is not in par with what we want. And it comes out of a recognition, having received on Friday the figures for the 2018 admittance into Mount Gay, and seeing that the majority of admittance into Mount Gay are now for substance or substance related, whether it is alcohol, marijuana, or harder substances. It's a significant amount there, and therefore we have to accelerate the construction of, and I would be looking at a start of construction this year, hopefully, but we have given a mandate to my fellow colleague, Minister Bowen, to include that into various other buildings that were to be started this year, or for him to find a way and a budget to start it this year. Because apart from there being an increase, don't take the figures incorrectly that we have suddenly an increase in users. A significant amount are repeat visits. So I only see it as admittance. It doesn't separate how many are new and how many are reoccurring. But the fact is that there is an increasing need for a separate, because we recognize that facility is inappropriate for the treating of individuals with substance abuse challenges or so, and that we must have the Carlton Home, which is what we had before. So that is going to be accelerated. The Rathdoon also has its role to play, and in doing that, we have already committed. As soon as we're into phase 2 there, we will start the construction of Rathdoon. So that is already committed. We're making an additional commitment now. And to be honest, we're making a commitment even before we've found the resources. But we're doing so publicly so that you can drive us forward and keep us on mark. That we will start that much faster than the current rate, because we do recognize. And remember, this is usually an area of healthcare that is ignored. Mental health is usually an area in most countries, even first world nations, that are ignored. But we have to address this issue, and we have to find the resources. Minister Cox and I have to find the resources together for him to have the Spice Master as well. And the thing is, unlike those who write and criticize us about money being spent on stadium lights, we see the connection. A successful Spice Master affords more money coming into the Treasury that we can use for, quite likely, a Carlton Home. And spending money on lights in the stadium affords attracting additional matches, games, 2020, and opportunities for our own people to play and enjoy that stadium. And those matches, those 2020s that could come, the possible, the Caribbean, the CPL coming here as well, those booths. And it is from that we will find the sustainable money for the Rathdoon, the Carlton Home, the equipment, the training, the AEDs, everything else. So the individuals there, while they write well, they are truly showing their inability to manage and understand the connectivity of things. And the message today from me is that while I have not responded to them, it's because I've been focusing on doing the job with my colleagues here of management. They can speak, but true management produces results. And it's very easy when you're on the outside, just pelt stones, as we say. But I think the fault that we've had is maybe not answering and saying, hey, you're wrong. You are wrong to say this. You are wrong to criticize our soca artists being present at our school events, even if they sang or didn't sing. Because our soca artists are role models to our youth as well. It's part of our culture. We are West Indian. We are Caribbean. We are Spice Mass. We are Karani James as well. But we are now Mr. Killer as well. We have two world-class performers, one in athletics, one in soca now. Both of them wear crowns or medals that show them to be the best in the world. And why shouldn't they be role models to our youth? Hollis Mapp, I know him well, is a role model to our youth. So if other politicians don't want to recognize that, that's their fault. But we as a government and responsible individuals, I see him as a role model. And I'm proud to associate myself with him.
Okay. My next question to you has to do with the whole fact you mentioned a bit about service and improvement of service and so on. The nurses that were trained, they are all employed and so, and also the electronic system in the healthcare facility. What I want to get from you is, as we speak to nurses, does the government have any plans? You know, normally we have nurses that migrate, in terms of bringing in nurses to complement what we have in terms of improving our healthcare. And part two is, when you speak of the electronic system, are they all networked with the various health centers, and how soon would you have it operational within the general hospital?
In terms of the nursing issue, we have wishes of bringing in nurses from elsewhere. But as I said, there is a worldwide shortage of nurses, and any nurse who speaks English they are qualified and good, they're going to be going to first world nations and trying to get as much as possible financially or in terms of challenge of services that they can provide. So there are two motivations for an individual to leave, to be able to do more with their talent and to be able to get more from their talent. So yes, we have wishes, but like I said, we recognize there's a shortage. So what we have to do is deal with the challenge here. And the challenge here is to train as many people as possible. Those that have received the first level of training, to make sure that we provide opportunities for them to specialize. And the greater the opportunity, the better we are able to deal with the migrations as you refer to it. But there will always be individuals who leave. The fact is that if we constantly improve while they leave, because they're leaving for a better place, or they're leaving for more opportunities or more remuneration. Once we constantly improve, and once they constantly call themselves Grenadian, they will come back. And I think sitting here today is a prime example of that. Dr. McIntosh left, but she is back. And the fact that she's back now with the wealth of experience that she's gained out there is a true benefit to us. So those who leave, as long as we try as best as possible to fill that gap, to improve those services, to work with what we have, and focusing on patient care as much as possible, and constant training and improvement, then individuals will come back.
Gerald Joseph, GBN. Minister Steele, can you give me an update on the Carriacou medical station, which was shut down by mold, and part 2, Simon Medical? Why was there a need for emergency oxygen recently?
On the two issues, one on the Carriacou, it's a structural issue there with the mold. As I've said, we have on schedule to upgrade most of our health facilities, primary healthcare facilities, this year. That was a long task, a long overdue task. So you will find some of our facilities can't wait for that, like Carriacou. So the Ministry of Implementation is on top of that to do the necessary repairs or so, where we thought initially, or were hoping initially, it would just be to go clean off the walls and do a repaint. It's much more excessive than that. For the constant decade or more, however long it's been without the proper repairs that we are now addressing for this year. And your other question, sorry, was what? The oxygen. The oxygen, we didn't run out of oxygen. Actually, that's Dr. McIntosh being more proactive. We saw that we were could possibly be coming to a critical level because our oxygen, we import a certain amount of oxygen, as well as having that oxygen plant. That the oxygen plant was not at capacity, was not functioning the way we would be comfortable with it, and that the shipment of oxygen that we had ordered and also the local provider would have had as backup was coming in on the Friday, and Dr. McIntosh did not want to take the risk of where she saw by Wednesday, I think, or so. So you go ahead.
So just to address that, as Minister Steele is talking about, the fact that we are the one main hospital, operating room, ICU, areas of patients who are in-house, and for diabetes and hypertension, a lot of the times of a stroke, there's the need of oxygen. So our consumption of oxygen is increasing as our needs for our patients. So we're always having to be on point, because you don't want to have a point where we're using the oxygen and it comes into a weekend, or it comes into a point where our oxygen bank is saying, we're down on tanks. We are in need, and this is where we're going to be very transparent. Our oxygen plant, which would normally make our oxygen, is down. So we need to get cylinders to actually be able to continue to provide it to the oxygen to the hospital, Princess Alice, Princess Royal, Mount Gay, and Richmond Home. So we are the central place for that. So we're constantly looking at, and our consumption keeps going up. Constantly. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that people are coming in and using our services. We're using our services for, like I said, those in the ICU, those in the special care unit, those as well on the floor, as well as in the operating room. And we know at a certain point, because we watch this, our oxygen plant guys are excellent. They will come back and say, you know what? We normally need to have at least 60 tanks present, because we need to constantly change our banks to supply the hospital. when we got to the point where they said we went down to 40, we had a high consumption over the weekend. We're like, okay, our next ones are supposed to be coming in. Our local person did not have oxygen ready, and our Trinidad group had them ready for Thursday and Friday. We're talking about Monday. So it was where it went back to the government, it went back to the ministry and said, we have a crisis. It is not a negative thing to say we have a crisis, and we need to start to understand that. We have a crisis that we need to address, and thank God we were able to address it, that we have courts where it came back minister to minister and able to discuss it and say, look, we need to speed this up. We can't wait for when the boats normally come in from Trinidad. We need to get this in now, so that we'll have it present. And everyone was on point so that it's maintained, which was the key thing, that at the hospital, there was no point when someone said, we need to stop doing elective cases because we have no oxygen. There was no point when someone in the IC would call down and say, we need another oxygen tank, and we don't have it. We had no point where Princess Royal Hospital would call in and say, you know, Carnival is coming up and we have all these different things. We need extra oxygen. We have it. So it is something that, yes, people need to know, and I'm glad that the minister has this where people learn about it. But it's to hear it and hear it for real. We have high consumption. We have sick people on the island that can't travel out, that can't go somewhere else. So we need to provide, and we're able to provide. That, I don't think it's negative to say we need emergency. Well, great, we did it. Yes.
Okay, we're running out of time here. We've actually gone over a good 10 minutes, but I'll just allow a couple more questions. So another 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap up, okay?
A question for Minister Cox. You have an update on the, well, Minister Steele would have highlighted on it and its importance, the lighting of the stadium as well as suggest.
Okay. Thank you for that question. The lighting, we are working towards, it's a top priority for the government to ensure that we bring lights to the cricket stadium. And for the same reasons that Minister Steele had intimated, that we believe that there is a great opportunity for the Stadium Authority and also for Grenada, from an economic standpoint, for us to have that accessory, that lighting accessory, to, of course, to create opportunities for more games, for more activity at the cricket stadium. We recognize that the interest has grown after the recent cricket games, when we recognized there was an opportunity that we could have played the game later in the evening, providing that we had light. Currently, where we are, we have received a proposal from a preferred bidder. We have another company, a professional company, assessing, analyzing that proposal to ensure that whatever they say they're giving us is the correct thing. So that is being done currently. And the reason why we are doing that, we're trying to ensure that we do it right. We do it the right way. We have the right equipment. We have an opportunity to look at various suppliers of LED, because initially we were looking at halogen, and now we're moving to LED. It's going to be much more cheaper in terms of energy for us if we go to LED than to still with halogen. It's a better technology. It lasts longer. Better quality light as well. Less glare. If you know, in comparison, where we have the lights at the athletic stadium, you have glare all over the place. With the LED, it's less glare and it's safer. So we are currently working. We are hoping within the coming weeks to have something final, something concrete. And as soon as we finalize on that in terms of when we're going to commence, we'll make that known. What I can tell you is that there have been several trips by various engineers at the facility to look at the electrical integrity, to ensure that we have what it takes to install those lights and poles as well, and also to looking at the structure, the integrity structure of the stadium, if there is a possibility for some of those lights to be hung on the stadium instead of putting all on poles. So those are the discussions that are being done currently, and we are hoping to have that addressed as soon as possible. As soon as we have those final recommendations by the company who is assessing for us, then we'll move forward. But we believe that where we are right now, we're in a good place to commence sometime between now and the middle of the year.
Just a quick follow-up. What would have happened with the 2015 sponsorship from Caribbean Banknote for the stadium lighting of the stadium?
Let me explain that, because I think there's a little bit of misinformation. It's not a sponsorship by the Caribbean Banknote. We are financing this project through the national lotteries. And national lotteries will be taking a loan to install these lights. The Caribbean Banknote is one of our strategic partners, and their purpose and objective in this process, they are basically securing the loan, guaranteeing the loan for us for the national lotteries, and not, it wasn't a grant or anything of the sort. The initial discussions for such a loan were to be disbursed from Scotiabank. Now Scotia is presumably going to a Republic, so we have started discussions with Republic to ensure we continue that facility so that those funds are going to be ready for disbursement as soon as we finalize contractual arrangements and things like that. So it's not any grant, it is a loan, hence the reason why we are taking our time to ensure that we get the right product, we get the right pricing, so that we do not have to borrow more than we're supposed to. Thank you.
Karima, final question will be yours. Yes.
Now is the rest on the social media website once we set it up.
Minister Cox, a loan of how much? Shall we? A loan of how much? How much will it cost to light the stadiums?
Well, that is what we're trying to ascertain. We're working based on the type of lights and the final construct, the final configuration, whether we're going to use all poles, whether we're going to use some poles and some lighting inside. That is being worked on currently. As soon as we have those final figures, the public will know. We're hoping that it's going to be as least as possible, but at the same time to have a good product. The reason why we're trying to do this, you only get to do this once. And we want to ensure that we do it right. And so bear with us. We're asking persons, I know the cricketers keep asking every day for us to give some more information, but we want to ensure that we do it properly and to ensure that we get the best value for money.
Rules, how does the ICC rules come into play with all of this?
Well, we have engaged, I personally would have engaged the ICC, and they have forwarded to us all the specifications in terms of the locks and the lighting specification on the field, and we have forwarded those to the various light manufacturers. And what they have done is to develop modules. All right, so they use a GPS to place the poles outside the stadium. They would have received drawings of the stadium and use GPS and come up with different modules to ensure that the locks is where it's supposed to be at the right amount. And we're not trying to meet ICC, but we're trying to exceed as well. So all that is being taken into consideration. So a lot is taking place in the background, but thank you very much for that question.
One question: have we been able to replace the nurses who have migrated to quote-unquote greener pastures?
I don't think we ever replace anybody that is left, but have we been able to maintain our numbers above critical? Yes. Do we have a system in place to increase the number of individuals coming into the system? Yes. And also focusing on increasing the level of training for those that have remained as well. Will that increase the potential of leaving? Maybe. But we have to focus on the task at hand, which is to train our people as much as possible, as quickly as possible, so that they can deliver as best as possible.
Okay, any final comments from our panelists here this morning? Dr. McIntosh, any final words from you?
I just want to say that I think this is very good. I think it's worthwhile to hear the questions and to be as transparent as possible. And I emphasize that the administrators at each of the hospital, if there are any issues, good or bad, please come up to us to let us know so that we can actually address that. That's our job to do it. And I just want to emphasize, because I know verbiage, that was people do not take back and say the oxygen issue was a crisis. No, that was not a crisis. That was an issue that we dealt with so that we don't have a crisis, so that people really understand not to mix words together and remembering where we're going.
Thank you very much. Minister Steele?
Just simply to say that as always, we welcome the criticism. When that criticism is from a family member or an actual patient or someone who has not been treated in a way or has lost a loved one or is in pain, I think that is genuine. That is what we need. We need the feedback from those individuals. So welcome those feedbacks. There are others that will give opinions and so. They're entitled to as well, and it's our job as well to deal with that and to strengthen the system. So the more criticism we get, is the stronger we can be. But I think the one thing we have to be critical of ourselves in, that we're saying from today will change, is that we've been too silent on how we've been dealing with that criticism. We've been too silent on what we've been doing within the health system. And as a result of that silence, the general opinion out there is all negative, because the only thing that gets spoken about publicly is all the negatives. I think as a healthcare provider, Minister of Health, and so you're always very cautious about just coming to say positives, because healthcare and administration of healthcare is a never-ending journey. And it is one journey because we're all mortal beings where at some point the system will fail you. No matter how good the system is, how much money is in it, how good the people are, at some point the system will fail us all because we are mortal beings. But it doesn't mean that between now and then we can't proudly speak about, improve, and deliver that patient-centered care with the challenges that we have and despite of the challenges that we have.
Thank you very much, Minister Steele. Senator Cox, final words from you.
Thank you very much, President. I just wanted to run back to a quick follow-up question that I received from Sherry, and it has to do with support to the swimming. Just to also further inform that the government has vested land in the Swimming Association and also working closely with them in building an aquatic center. There is a committee that was just formed, a committee for building that facility that is spearheaded by Mrs. Vida Bruno, who is a well-known sports enthusiast and also a former champion. I just want to just reiterate the importance of having being given an opportunity to engage the public and, of course, the media in this setting. And we are always willing and ready to give feedback on what we do. We want to encourage the public and, of course, the media to come out on Saturday to cover the Grenada Invitation. It's an important activity for Grenada. There have been some challenges for them, but I believe that the ministry and, of course, the Grenada Athletic Association must be congratulated for working with them to ensure that we are at this stage where we are today. There is a lot more to do. We believe that it has great value for Grenada, great value for athletes, and I believe that we should continue to invest in such an activity, fix whatever challenges that they have, and to move forward with it. Because if you look around, I think probably the only other island within the region that has an invitational is probably Jamaica. And so you can understand it's a significant achievement for us. And so we just want to encourage persons to support come Saturday. Spice Mass, we know we have Spice Mass. I don't have to say that much about Carnival for Grenada. When you say Carnival, Grenadians, we respond in a positive way. We love our culture, and I know that everybody is on board 100%. The Spice Mass office and the board, they're working hard to ensure that we put a good product together for everyone. And just one last thing on the lighting in terms of investment. There may have been a possibility, and right now, Grenada, there is a great interest in CPL coming to Grenada. We have been approached more than one prospective teams. So discussions are ongoing. We do not know. Probably if we had the lights, maybe we probably would have CPL this year. You never know. But however, we believe that there is a great opportunity for Grenada to have a CPL going forward. I think it will be excellent. It will be wonderful to just have CPL here. Just to tell you a quick note, I had some sporting gentlemen in my office a couple of days ago. And so I asked them, I said, what do you think about a CPL team, CPL cricket playing Grenada? You know, he said, Minister, he said, that would be so wonderful. I just be so jealous when I looking at CPL in other countries. I think that we need to have this here. So we recognize that there is a great desire to have more cricket, a different version of the game playing here in Grenada. And the Ministry of Sports and of course the government by extension, we are doing everything that we can in a responsible way. Because we recognize that there are a number of other needs for development in Grenada as well. And so we're going to do it in a responsible way to make it not just to have just like, but more an investment so we can benefit from it going forward. So just want to thank you, and always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Senator Cox, Minister Steele, Dr. McIntosh. You've certainly made my job much easier with your wrap-up comments. I don't now have to review the very important things that we learned here this morning. Certainly one of the key takeaways would be the fact that the Ministry of Health would be harnessing all of the criticism that it receives, positive and negative, and using that to make differences in the system so that we can offer better service to Grenadians. With that, we come to the end of this week's Post-Cabinet Press Briefing. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. Do join us again next time. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in.
Saturday, April 13th is the date. 4 p.m. is the time. It's the 3rd annual Grenada Invitational. World-class athletes, world-class performances, and a world-class facility. Come see Olympians Andre DeGrasse, Sheldon Fraser Price, Braylon Toplin, Asafa Powell, Lyndon Victor, and the cast of superstars at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Tickets are now on sale at godofed.com. Grenadian Optical, Duty Free Caribbean, Maxis Bar, and Venus. Saturday, April 13th. Grenada Invitational. See you there.
McIntyre, top of the screen in the colors of Grenada with a bit of a lead.
Maxis, Venus, Grenadian Optical, Duty Free Caribbean, Gatlin, Powell, DeGrasse, Fraser Price, Taplin, and more in exciting international track and field action.
This is what we've waited for.
World-class athletes.
The fastest men in the world.
World-class performances.
Watch the clock, it's goal!
Clean hands save lives. Keeping.
Yes, indeed. Clean hands do save lives. Yes, indeed. Good morning to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Once again, it is time for Hard Talk. My name is Sheldon Scott.
I'm Devon Romain.
Yes, and abbreviated program today, it seems, because
pretty short today.
Yeah, we had quite a lot of discussion this morning.
A lot of info.
Yeah, the ministers up to bat this morning. We've had the Honorable Nicholas Steele, our Minister of Health, and Senator the Honorable Nolan Cox, our Minister of Sports and Culture. Yeah, so quite some interesting discussions this morning into various aspects of both ministries. And we also had the Director of Health, Miss McIntosh. She was on this morning as well. Yeah. What I think we're going to do, Devon, is open the phone lines. For those who've been listening to the post-cabinet press briefing, we're going to open the phone lines so you can call in if you have a comment or so in relation to some of the things that have been discussed. You heard discuss the situation with ambulances. Yeah, that the operating procedure for how you dispatch ambulances.
And that is critical, eh?
Mm-hmm.
It's critical.
And it's not something new that the minister and the hospital director is just saying today. This was announced when the ambulances were announced that the ambulances were coming in.
Last year.
Yeah, it was also discussed that a new system is being put in place for the dispatch of ambulances. But what you have is a lot of people are still calling the emergency room. So you go into the phone book and you call the emergency room and you're asking for an ambulance. No, the emergency room doesn't know if it have 3 ambulances parked up outside.
Okay.
They don't know if it have 2. They don't know. So they would give you whatever answer according to what they know. But they're setting up a specific dispatch. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but the number already exists. It's on some of the ambulances as well. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. We'll get it. And probably we'll have a little promo. Kevin, we'll have a little promo done that we can run during programs so that you get familiar with that number. And that will be the number that you know you call when you need an ambulance. Just like we know we need the police, we call 911. You know you need an ambulance, you'll call that particular number. Yeah, so you have a police emergency, you call 911.
And you see, and it's so important to have a system like that operating, because what you'll find, the dispatcher, the persons on end receiving those calls, based on the information that you're able to give them or they gather from you, they were able to send the right equipment with the ambulance, what is needed, you understand, to ensure that the patient get that care on the spot and to the hospital. So it's very, very important that, you know.
Because the ambulance services are very important, especially ensuring that they know what they're coming to. One of the things, I have a relative who was a nurse for many years, and one of the things that she always did is that if an emergency occurred, and she is bringing someone down to the hospital, even if it's with a private vehicle, that she's bringing someone down to the hospital, what she as a nurse used to do would be that she would call the hospital. She would call the emergency room and say, I am bringing in a child age 6. He's having an asthma attack, and any other vital information you know that they need to know. He's having an asthma attack. He's 5 years old. We should be there within the next how many minutes. So the emergency room is expecting this individual coming in, and they prepare accordingly.
Yeah, they prep.
Then you just
prep. Yeah,
then you just arrive, and then they have to be scrambling to grab this, that. And I've seen her do it on a number of occasions, and it always worked perfectly. That she would call the emergency room, call along to them, say, listen, I'm bringing in this person. This is what is the matter with them. We're coming down to the hospital right now. And by the time you get there, they're waiting on that person. So they bring them in, and it saves precious minutes and it saves precious seconds to assist in helping that person. The other thing is that if the ambulance was coming, they knew that if the ambulance is coming to collect an individual, what to expect. So they know if they have to have the defibrillator. They know if they have to take a specific type of medication or piece of equipment that they usually don't travel with. They would know that, okay, we need to take this. We're heading down to that particular incident or whatever it is. So it's always important. There was an incident a couple months ago. I was around when there was a particular incident where 2 vehicles collided. And one individual was pinned in the vehicle. And in calling the fire station, I made sure that when I called them, I told them, you need to bring the jaws alive. Well, they call it the jaws alive. There's another proper name for it, but you know what I mean, the jaws alive.
The jaws alive.
Because
very
the
important.
individual is pinned in the vehicle and could not come out. That they had to bring it to cut him out of the vehicle and so. And so you have to give a little more information. Yeah, and unfortunately, there was a miscommunication. We've heard about the incident of the individual who suffered that cardiac arrest coming down on the vessel from Carriacou, and different things, which is why the minister has also spoken about bringing legislation so that these vessels will have to have certain equipment on them. These vessels that are traveling down from Carriacou, or even vessels traveling between Grenada and Trinidad, because you have passengers on them. What happens between Grenada and Trinidad? Someone suffers a cardiac arrest or some sort of incident out there. Do you call the Trinidad Coast Guard and hope that they reach there in time? Or the Grenada Coast Guard and hope they reach there in time? What do you do in the interim? And it's not only equipping the vessels, but also training the staff, which is very important. And then you go a little further than that? And how do you also do training, for instance, with bus drivers? I believe that on a zonal basis, you need to have basic first aid training being done with bus drivers. An accident happens, God forbid, and we're just saying here in hypotheticals, an accident happens. How do you, as the driver, suppose you're okay, but there are people that are injured in your vehicle that you're responsible for. How do you address that? Someone is bleeding. Someone is unconscious. Someone flew out of the vehicle, ended up in the water. You're passing and you see someone that was drowning, you get them out of the water. How do you address situations like that? Do you just phone and wait until the ambulance reach? Meanwhile, the person, you could have saved the person's life. There's still a heartbeat there. You don't even know how to check for the heartbeat or check for a pulse. Do you just sit at the side and wait or hope that somebody know what they're doing? Or do you know basic CPR to revive that person? Because those seconds, those minutes that you may take waiting for an ambulance to come from St. George to reach up on the West Coast, or an ambulance waiting to reach up into the Granatang or wherever, those vital minutes that you're taking there can mean the difference between that person seeing Christmas or that person knowing what well, not knowing, but going inside Al-Aqua or Otway Bailey or Wayne. Yeah, Wayne.
Which they would never know.
Yeah, we ain't talking about walking inside here. Yeah, we're talking about going in a different ways. Yeah.
But it's so important, the amount of information that was given by the Minister of Health and the Director of Medical thing there. Because at least the Grenadian people need to be aware of the services that are being provided and how you can get these services. You know, and as a people, we need to pay more attention. A lot, right, as to information, what can be done, what cannot be done, and everything like that. You know, and every day we learn lessons, right, with events that happen and so on. By the grace of God, we are getting better. We are providing much more to make it much easier, you know, for health in Grenada, and that must be, you know, be commended.
So I think it's let me see. I was looking at a comment here, but I think it's very important that we all understand our role too, and try to make sure that we ourselves are equipped. You see, many times you start to attack the health services, so you say this wasn't available, that wasn't available, that wasn't available. But one of the problems that we have is, one, people tend to panic. Yeah. When you panic, and that's why even during the hurricane season, when we say, okay, there's a possibility that system A or system B is going to be passing on or close to Grenada and may or may not affect Grenada, but don't panic. The reason we always say don't panic is because when you panic, you're not thinking clearly and you make mistakes that can cause life and limb and loss of property. Yeah. When you're not thinking clearly. So in a measured way, you have to learn to approach situations. You could approach situations on emotion, you know. You could always approach situations on emotion.
Yeah, that's easy to do.
And start the ball and scream, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. Yeah. Or you could approach it in, how can I deal with this immediately? Yeah. What is the best thing to do? And if you train yourself to get into that position, you would see that you can come out safely from a lot of situations, and you can also help others to come out from situations safely. For instance, in both the private and public sector, I believe there must always be at least one person in an office. I prefer more than one, but there should always be at least one person that is trained in CPR.
Yeah, very important.
Always. Because it doesn't matter how old or how young you are, no matter the age, people get heart attack.
All the time.
Some people walk-in heart attack just waiting to happen. I know of incidents where people driving, boop, heart attack. Yeah. Dead while they're driving, just boop, crash at the side of the road, everybody wondering what happened, heart attack. And other situations as such. So we should always have staff at, be it the supermarkets where you have a high volume of people. No supermarket should not have at least 3 or 4 people and at least one person who is on shift at any time that is trained in CPR. For the volume of people you have coming into the supermarket, old, young, middle-aged, sick, well, all sorts of things, You must always have somebody that's trained in CPR. If it takes legislation to get that done, then by all means do the legislation. We have a caller. Okay, we lost that one. Yeah. If it takes legislation to do it, by all means, do the legislation. I think that's what the minister was getting at. That because, for instance, it could happen, and he mentioned this one, it could have happened on something like the Rum Runner.
Exactly.
People drinking, your blood pressure going up, you're drinking, you're dancing, you're getting on, you're excited, you're all kind of thing. And then, boop, what do? Everybody start to scream and bawl and all kind of thing and take rum and try and slap the person's face. What do you do? This person has gone into cardiac arrest. What do you do? Hope that a doctor is on board? What do you do? For some reason, somebody is calling and it keeps cutting off. I don't know why. Let me make sure it's clear here. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, you see, it's so very important for us as a people to continue educating ourselves when it comes to things like CPR, health issues, right? The first line of attack or the first line of defense when it comes to issues like basic CPR. How can you do? What can you do in instances where somebody may get grasping for breath or may not be breathing? Somebody who has a serious laceration. What can you do? Good morning and welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning to you, sir.
How are you, sir?
Oh, we're fine.
Well, yeah. You hearing me?
Yeah, we're hearing you loud and clear.
Yeah, well, I'll be very honest with you all. Based on the limited time and based on the what Mr. Steele and our director was saying, I was cussing you all behind the scenes and saying, listen, they have, based on what was said, they must realize that there are those of us who want to call and support what has been said. Now, gentlemen, first of all, you have all our director. You understand, Dr. McIntosh. And, and I must say, I must be very clear here. I must say that Miss Fleury had did an excellent job while she was here. But Dr. McIntosh, being a doctor and coming from a medical background, has come in, and improved tremendously on what have been done here so far. And I'm glad to hear her addressing the issues that she had addressed when it comes to the ambulances and when it comes to oxygen. Because based on what was said, there have been at no point at all was a situation when doctors needed to operate and there was no oxygen. Now, Mr. Scott, I want to stray a little bit here because I want to let you know that, I want to speak about the games, and the reason why I want to speak about the games because the issues surrounding the games in terms of the deduction and the 25%, sometimes, it get all of the what's important get lost in that. But what I want to tell you is that even if I was hesitant about when the Ministry of Education and the government decided to hold the secondary school games, I can tell you, gentlemen, being there, I have never seen so much enthusiasm and excitement from students like what I have seen, last Friday. And listen to this. After 25 years in the hospitality industry, as a banquet and catering / convention supervisor, working for the Raphael Group, the Wyndham Hotels, and the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, I believe I am well placed to observe the operation, the operation of the games and what those involved with was tasked with. And gentlemen, I must say to you all, I want to compliment all those responsible for organizing the secondary school games. I must admit, It was well executed and well run. And like I've said before, when I look at the enthusiasm and the excitement of the children, I am fully convinced now more than ever before that the decision to hold the games was the right one, because the interest of the children surpasses all other interests. Now, Mr. Scott, listen to this, you and Mr. Romain. We gave the mandate to this government. We elect this government to do things, and they should not shy away from their responsibility. They need to take and make some bold decision, even when it's not popular. Example, the subvention to Spice Mass, the lighting of the stadium, the contribution to the invitational. You understand? Radoon, the Carlton Home, the soccer. Look at it, the soccer artists at our stadium. What else can we ask for? We have Mr. Killer, Mr. Hollis Map, Dash, Mr. Legs Vaughn. They are role models, and the government should promote them at all times. But, Mr. Scott, I'm going to wrap up here. Now, hear me carefully, eh? I'm in favor of the 25% for public servants, which include teachers. I'm in favor of public servants, which include teachers, getting the 25% gratuity, 25% cash advance of the pension upon retirement. I support that, and I agree with that. But I also understand the government position when they say, well, we cannot do certain things at this present time. We can only do what we can do now, So it is not about bashing teachers. No, because I know what teachers have done for me, what they have done for my children, what they have done for my family. But because you are teachers, when you take certain actions, we cannot just fall victim, if that's the correct word, to what you want. I hope I'm making some sense in what I'm saying here. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we understand your struggle and what you're fighting for. But equally among your struggle is the interest of the children. And at no time, that should get lost in your arguments. And Mr. Scott, let me wrap here. 25 years in the industry, I don't know if you know, I worked at the stadium, and the capacity in which I worked, it gives me the opportunity to access each and every active area of the stadium that had to do with the sports, So I observe everything, whether it was them people who was involved, whether it was the kitchen, whether it was those executing the sports. Mr. Scott, Mr. Romain, do you know they execute their responsibility so well that they gave me the impression that this was easy, despite the fact I know of the logistics that had to take place in order to make it possible. There was a gentleman there in a white jersey at the stadium. I don't know his name. Bald-headed white gentleman. And I'm telling you, this man was... Hey, don't lock up this door, boy. Sorry about that. This gentleman was fully on top of his responsibility. And I want to say here, watch. Sometimes we hear about the minor negatives that take place in our schools. But after having thousands of students in one area, that was whereby we had to do a security check on just about every one of them. Mr. Scott, the cooperation that we receive from the student is one that presently I cannot find a word to explain. They cooperated in every aspect of the security check. And when you have thousands of students in one location, without one untoward incident, with everybody coming in, and with everybody coming in, obeying the rules and regulation, and exiting the stadium in a timely manner without any incident whatsoever, Mr. Scott, our children in this country need to be admired much more than the minor negatives that does.
My brother, we had to cut it. We had to cut it because remember we only have few minutes and we can't take 10 minutes on one caller when we only have 20.
We seized there, where they could have come back to collect, was the geometry set, which was a pointed and bladed weapon. So I must say, well done to all those who were responsible. Thank you for the time.
All right, brother. We can't take 10 minutes on one caller when we only have. In fact, I can't even take our next call because we only have 5 minutes remaining.
5 minutes.
Yeah, we only have 5 minutes remaining. But I know there were some questions as well in relation to the transfer of patients from Carriacou to Grenada. And, no longer are they going through Hillsborough on the jetty in Hillsborough. They're now down at the jetty in, what do they call that area again? Harveyville. Yeah, people that stone me if I go Carriacou after that. Yeah, down in Harveyville, which is making it, and Devon, we went through that jetty up there in Harveyville before. And it's much more comfortable, much more easy to transfer onto. Yeah, much more easy to transfer onto and off of the jetty there to get people onto and off of the boat. And still working, while we're working on transferring people between Grenada and Carriacou, the Honourable Ministers, the Minister of Health as well as the Minister with Responsibility for Carriacou and Petit Martinique Affairs and MP for Carriacou and Petit Martinique, they are also working on improving healthcare in Carriacou.
In Carriacou itself and Petit Martinique.
Yeah, so that you could avoid having to send people down in the first place. Yeah. If you can stabilize and deal with certain things in Carriacou, one of the problems they continue to meet is that doctors refuse to work in Carriacou. They don't want to be based in Carriacou, even when, and this is an indictment on some of you in Carriacou, even when you decide that you're going to help a young person from Carriacou to gain a medical degree. Many of them, they would go, gain the medical degree, and then they do not want to return in Carriacou to practice. No, I tell you, that's how it goes. They do not want to return in Carriacou to practice because they think if they have a place on the mainland and they're operating on the mainland, that's where they could make thousands of dollars because they will have a local pharmacy or something, or they're gonna have their practice here, so they could work in the general hospital here. They want to work in the general hospital. They work in the general hospital, and then on your time out, you come and you go into your own private practice here in Grenada. Meanwhile, it's difficult to do that in Carriacou. So you find that even young persons, or some persons who go and get their medical degree from Carriacou or Petit Martinique, or even some who get their nursing degree from Carriacou and Petit Martinique, don't want to work in Carriacou and Petit Martinique at the end of the day. They want to come down to the mainland. So you may take a person from there and you specialize them in a particular field. And when they become specialized in that, if you bond them sometimes, yeah, but the first opportunity they get, they're gone.
Yeah, they move out.
Some of them not even coming to say they're going to stay in Grenada. They're gone to the U.S. They're gone to the U.S.
Some level of patriotism, and so has to be instilled. But again,
you see, with the
we get in there.
With the equipment, with the facilities, with the training, you also have to have that mindset.
Yeah.
If you don't have the correct mindset, no matter how much, you could spend billions of dollars on healthcare in Grenada. Billions. You could have state-of-the-art hospitals, state-of-the-art accident and emergency. You could have hovercraft ambulances operating throughout Grenada that you're passing and people can't even feel when they're passing in it. You could have the latest technology available here, world-class surgeons and everything. If the mindset of the individuals involved in the sector is not addressed, you're going to end up going back to the same thing at the end of the day.
In mud.
Yeah, you're going to end up going back to the same thing. You could have all the medication you need. You could have all the equipment you need. You can have everything that state-of-the-art
best on the planet, if you do not have the correct mindset, it's useless. It's going to be useless. Devon, I think that's all the time we have for today.
That's all the time. Pretty short program, but I'm very interested. Lots of information by our ministers through the press conference. And hey, we had a mouthful.
Yes,
Health,
indeed,
especially.
Yes, so folks, we'll be back tomorrow with more Hard Talk for you. My name is Sheldon Scott.
I'm Devon Romain.
And in whatever you say and do it safe and secure. I want to be speaking to and with you.
And not about you.
We are out of here.
Saturday, April 13th is the date. 4 p.m. is the time. It's the 3rd annual Grenada Invitational. World-class athletes, world-class performances, and a world-class facility. Come see Olympians Andre DeGrasse, Shellyan, Fraser Price, Braylon Toplin, Asafa Powell, Lyndon Victor, and the cast of superstars at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Tickets are now on sale at godofed.com. Grenadian Optical, Duty Free Caribbean, Maxis Bar, and Venus. Saturday, April 13th. Grenada Invitational. See you there.
McIntyre, top of the screen in the colors of Grenada with a bit of a lead.
Former CXC registrar says additional costs for marking SBAs will have to be passed on to students. Details to this story and more in the National Report. Welcome back with the details on Monday, April 8th. I am Sherry-Ann Noel. Former Registrar and Chief Executive Officer of CXC, Dr. Didicus Jules, says CXC cannot afford to make payments being demanded by some of the region's teachers to correct students' school-based assessments. He was responding to reports of threats by the teachers not to correct the SBAs if payment is not forthcoming. Dr. Jules says if forced to pay, CXC will have to pass on the additional cost to students. More details from regional reporter Stanley Lucien.
No, I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed because the issue of payment for marking exams in general arose when I was registrar of CXC. And one of the first things I had done was to go to council asking for a significant increase in the subventions paid to CXC in order to pay markers much more, because there had been no increase for the preceding 25 years. So we felt that it was necessary to ensure that markers were given, more significant compensation for their marking.
During his tenure at the helm of CXC, Dr. Jules says he and the man who currently occupies his former seat tried desperately to address that concern.
The SBA from its inception was one of the most far-sighted things that the CXC could have done that distinguished it from Cambridge. Because as you know, just let's speak conceptually. First of all, the SBA is an opportunity to for students to apply the knowledge in whatever subject that they are doing to real life and to show the application of knowledge. That's one dimension. The second important dimension is that it is an opportunity for the teacher, the classroom teacher, who has interacted with the students throughout the year, to have a significant input into the grading, whatever is the final grade of their students, and therefore not just rely on a 2 or 3 hour exam, do or die.
The Caribbean Examination Council has held firm to the view that school-based assessment is part of the normal classroom duties for teachers, and they should therefore not be paid any additional amount for assessing the SBAs.
It's very unfortunate because I think in some ways, this is a debate that is focused on the money, and the SBAs it's not a monetary thing. Neither was it meant to be an imposition on teachers that would, unduly tie up their time and create extra effort. All of that was supposed to be fitted within the ambit of the work that they do in their classrooms, and to give value to that in awarding final grades to students.
The Caribbean Examination Council is one of the region's outstanding successes, with passes in CXC subjects accepted for registering for post-secondary courses in the Caribbean, the United Kingdom, India, the United States, and other places. CXC, because of its use of innovation and its credibility, is considered a model in many far-flung regions of the world.
During the government's weekly post-cabinet briefing last week Tuesday, Minister for Education and Human Resource Development, Honorable Emmeline Pear, gave her ministry's position on the subject.
The Ministry of Education's position on this is that SBAs are part of the assessment, normal assessment of students. And we expect that this would form part of the regular assessment duties in accordance with the Education Act of our teachers. Now, it is not unique to Grenada that teachers feel that they should be paid additional because for many, they feel that the last-minute extra work that has to be done. For some, they think that is a lot of work to be done at the end of the period. But we are saying if SBAs are done in the way that is prescribed to be done, we should not have what is happening now. So at this stage, a child should not be starting an SBA. Probably if you talk about 2 weeks ago, or a child should not be rushing all over the place to get things done. What we expect would be happening is that over the period, the consistency, the continuous process would eliminate a lot of that end of period work that some persons have.
There is interest for sponsorship for a second edition of the National Secondary School Games, which was held at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium on Friday. The games were organized by the Grenada government through the Ministry of Education in response to the cancellation of the Intercall Games by the Grenada Association of Principals of Secondary Schools. Government said the decision was taken to ensure that students were not deprived of an opportunity to showcase their talent. Mr. Jerry Alexis, Curriculum Officer for Sports in the Ministry of Education, says the games were successful and have the potential to grow.
Definitely we're going to see a continuation. I think anything new in Grenada, you know, you always receive some challenges, you know, you always have questions about it. So the southern zone, as you noted, I wouldn't say it was a failure, however, I mean, it wasn't what we expected. There were a lot of positive coming out of it. And the sports grew from that. We went to the western side, western zone, and it was bigger. St. Andrews was bigger, and then Carriacou asked for 2 days, you know, to do the meet. I mean, come next year, hopefully we might have to do 2 days for every zone in order for us to get the field events and stuff in. You know, but definitely we're going to have it next year. As I said on Beyond the Headlines on Monday, I would have spoken to an individual who's very, very interested in the games, you know, collaborating with the government of Grenada, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Sports to be exact, you know, to having these games next year. I mean, even yesterday I spoke to the individual again and he said, listen, Alexis, I was even speaking to an international sponsor yesterday, you know. So, I mean, come next year, please a lot, I think we're going to be bigger and better as relates to these games.
During the official opening ceremony, Education Minister Honorable Emmeline Pear reaffirmed her government's commitment to put the interests of the nation's students first.
When the Ministry of Education, through the Minister of Education, was informed by the Principals Association that in 2019 there will be no meet upon, a decision was taken that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ministry of Sports, will hold the National Secondary School Games to ensure that we provide an opportunity for all of our athletes. Following this, a meeting was held with all of the principals, and we outlined the way forward as it relates to the hosting of the zonal games and the national meet today. I also want to use this opportunity at this opportune time to look back at Intercall over the years and the tremendous opportunities that it gave to our students many years ago and in very recent times, and to use the opportunity to commend and express appreciation to all of those who have been involved in one way or the other. And I want to at this time recognize even to the very first Intercall meet those who were involved.
A number of athletes achieved personal bests on the tracks and on the field during the games.
Corinne, you first won 155 was the height when you
you know, you defeated all your other competitors. You went to 161, and then you went to 164, and I think you were trying, was it 168?
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying my best to do 168. But just, you know, anytime they clapping and things, this kind of make me feel nervous and things. So I tried my best. So, yeah.
So how hard did you train for today?
I trained really hard. Took me some years, but see today, I did well. I can congrats myself for that.
And how happy are you for this opportunity to come down here, you know, and showcase your skill in high jump?
Opportunity.
You're happy for that opportunity?
Yeah, really happy.
And how do you feel it would turn out for the schools that make up the Eastern Zone in this inaugural championship?
It make them feel proud, real pride and thing, you know. But when the preps, everybody come in for next year, please the Lord, make them feel really good knowing that Corey Mason jumped this already. And they come to break my record and everything, so yeah.
Well, I made my personal best 195, so I see a chance to do the 2 meters, so I had to take it.
So how hard have you trained for today?
Well, it's just been back and forth because for the week I rested, so get the muscles ready for today and stuff. But I've been training hard, doing my extra work home and stuff.
So who is your coach?
Coach Paul.
Paul Phillip?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that Paul said you must execute here today in order to cross that 195 and eventually the 2 meter height?
Well, get the technique better and strengthen the legs, you know, build the muscles.
The 100-meter under-21 boys was the most keenly contested race, with Neil Peters emerging the winner. Neil Peters from the Western Zone, 10.53. When you ran the Western Games, you said your ultimate goal was to come down to and win the 100-meter. You did that. Tell us about the extra work you put in to ensure that happened.
Well, my coach told me I selected down one the 150s and what I was doing, so made me do 6 when I had it, and yeah, I guess as much things end up going as well according to plan. And
so finally from me for you, how competitive would you say that particular race was for you? Were you familiar with the other athletes and their ability?
Yeah, I was familiar with them because I know Nathaniel, well, he used to, and I would say used to, he was quicker than me. But after what I saw when I ran, yeah, I could do better, much better too.
One of the top athletes on the track from the Northern Zone was Zane McFarlane.
Well, first of all, I fumbled, so I got to catch up in the end of the race, but hopefully I didn't, but I appreciate with the time.
And how hard did you train for this moment?
Well, training was very hard for me because, you know, I as well, so they got to put in the hard work.
On the 15 champions in the boys and girls category, Shanti Augustine and Tajon Peter King of the Southern Zone both spoke of the opportunity to showcase their talent during the games.
Very happy because 12.74 is a personal best for me, and at first I was a bit intimidated, but when the gun went off, I went and I did my best, and I got great results.
So how long have you been training for this? Because I know you did not have secondary school games, but you get the opportunity to show off your talent at the National Secondary School Games. So how long have you been training, and who have you been training with?
Well, I've been training with Speed Zone under Mr. Albert Joseph, and ever since I got into SJC, I've been training for Intercall, but the cancellation caused me, it did not, at first it saddened me, but I continued to train hard, and I heard that they made a little solution to have the National Secondary School Games. Happy.
11.45 seconds, that's a time clock by the winner of the 100-meter boys on the 15. Tajon, tell us about that spirited run. You had a clean start and you powered your way down.
Well, you know, I've been training the whole season so far, and I know I have a lack of start. So in my mind was just to get the start and power go down.
You said that you have been training whole season. Who have you been training with?
Speed Zone with my coach Albert Joseph and Jelani Frank.
So how happy are you
for this opportunity today? Because you didn't get you didn't get a secondary school game. I mean, intercall. You didn't get your school sports, but still training, and you got the opportunity today, and you would have established a record because anyone who wins today would actually.
Yeah, well, I feel happy. You know, I trained very hard for this moment, and I made a personal best, and it's just amazing.
Were you trying to get a little lower than that 11?
Yes.
What was your target?
Well, to hit 11:20 something, but I couldn't make it. No, there's more opportunities again to make it, so I just wait and see.
On the 17 champs went to Kishona Phillip of the Southern Zone and Jaden Tika of the Northern Zone. The under 21 champs went to John A. Thomas and Jared Sylvester of the Eastern Zone.
You're known to excel in the longer distance races. You didn't make it that good in the 15, but you came out and you ran, and it seems as if you ran a pretty easy race here in the 400. How do you feel about this win?
I feel very good about this win. No, coming from injury and running a time like this, I'm very happy.
Jared, you didn't get to really shine this year because no intercall, no St. David's Catholic Secondary School sports. And this is your final year in secondary school. How happy are you that you got the opportunity here at the National Secondary School Games to go on display one last time for your mates?
I'm very, very, very happy to display my skills to my mates.
The athletes competed in a total of 60 events. Athletes who participated in the first National Secondary School Games have commended the government of Grenada for giving them the opportunity to be back on the track.
As an athlete, how do you feel to have been given this opportunity to compete? Because I know that you didn't have your secondary school game, you did not have the intercall, but you got an opportunity here at the National School Games, and to go along in the record as the athlete who would have, won the Honor 21 boys for the inaugural games.
Well, I'm really grateful for the ministries and whoever had part to play in putting all of this together, because this has been a major benefit towards we, the athletes, because with opportunities like this, we get exposure to other types of events, other type of meets coming up, for example, Carriacou games, so we can at least prepare knowing that we have something to go for. And as any other athlete, I can't be more grateful for having this. So I'm kind of proud, even though it wasn't one of my best performances, but still got the opportunity to. So thank you.
Students from the Eastern Zone, comprising of St. David Catholic Secondary School, St. Joseph's Convent Grenville, Grenville Secondary School, the St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, and the Grenada Christian Academy emerged champions with 304.50 points. The games were the culmination of 4 zonal meets to select the cream of the crop. The Southern Zone, comprising GBSS, Anglican High School, J.W. Fletcher Catholic Secondary School, Presentation Brothers College, St. Joseph's Convent St. George's, Wesley College and Boca Secondary School placed second with 229.50 points. Third position went to Northern Zone of Bishop's College and Hillsborough Secondary with 146.50 points, and fourth was the Western Zone, comprising schools Hatfield Secondary School, St. Rose Modern Secondary School, St. John's Christian Secondary School, St. Mark's Secondary, McDonald's College, and Grenada 7-Day Comprehensive Secondary School with 118.50 points. The zones participated in both field and track events. This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Big business don't participate.
Welcome back. Committed to serving the academic development of youth in Grenada, the Grenada Houston Association, GHA, has made scholarships available to a number of students to further their education. During a brief ceremony on Friday, Education Minister Honorable Emmeline Pear commended the association for its interest in youth development.
I observed and realized that this organization started as a result of Hurricane Ivan. And a passion, I believe, that was stirred up after the passing of the hurricane, that we need to do something special for students. And I want to commend that organization this morning. And so I want to challenge you this morning. However you see this contribution, in terms of quantity, in terms of size, to value it. Somebody worked very hard to ensure that you can have it today.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Kevin Andel, expresses his gratitude to the GHA for its work to ensure young people can secure their future.
I would really like to highlight the organization in which this award is being named, the Grenada Houston Association. Since 2005, that organization of dedicated Grenadians in the diaspora has been engaged in working with Grenada, committed partners to selling Grenada's culture out in the diaspora. But not only to sell Grenada's culture and to highlight what it is, but to also assist in the development of our young people through financial assistance to secondary school level and tertiary level students. As you go forward in your education, and I'm confident that you will make it and reach the highest heights that you should, I'm confident about that. I want you to remember to give back.
And that's the National Report for Monday, April 8th. I am Sherry Ann Noel.
Is the date. 4 p.m. is the time. It's the 3rd annual Grenada Invitational. World-class athletes, world-class performances, and a world-class facility. Come see Olympians Andre DeGrasse, Sheldon Fraser Price, Braylon Toplin, Asafa Powell, Lyndon Victor, and the cast of superstars at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Tickets are now on sale at godofed.com. Grenadian Optical, Duty Free Caribbean, Maxis Bar, and Venus. Saturday, April 13th. Grenada Invitational. See you there.
McIntyre, top of the screen in the colors of Grenada with a bit of a lead.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.